Hey there, everybody. Hope you're having a great week. So the videos that I am posting now titled My Narcissistic Mother, they actually ended up going a little longer than I had anticipated. So in the videos, you're going to hear me say in a couple places that it's part one of two, but actually I'm going to break it up into 4 videos. So just wanted to give you a heads up. They are a little long, but I got really passionate about what I was talking about, hoping that some of you can relate and some of you can take something from my story. And if you have something you want to share, you want to comment about, please feel free. I would love to hear from you guys. Okay. Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to The Invisible Woman. A lot of you have been asking me, why do I call my channel The Invisible Woman? Well, in this video, it's going to be part 1 of 2. I would like to elaborate just a little bit on why I did call my channel that. Growing up, I always felt invisible. I felt like nothing I ever did was good enough. Nothing I ever said was good enough. Nothing was right. I was feeling like the third wheel. And really not being able to please anybody, especially my mother. My mother demanded perfection. And when I didn't fall into line and do exactly what she wanted, there were threats, there was manipulation, and most of all, guilt. My mother was a master manipulator, and it left me living in constant fear and anxiety. And that is no way to live. This is the definition of a narcissist. A narcissist never wants to accept that they might be at fault for something. They never want to accept blame or admit that they could be the problem. And when you're trying to raise a child in a home like that, it just doesn't work. So I was left always questioning every decision that I ever made. Any little thing, any thought that entered my head, I always wondered, is my mother going to approve? Am I going to get in trouble for this? And that's no way for a child to live and be brought up. So I'd like to take just a little bit and talk about my experiences and what it was like growing up in a home like this, because I'm sure that many of you out there can relate, whether you had a mother or a father even that fit these descriptions. And it really can do a number on your psyche. It can affect your entire life. I am a grown adult now, and I still find myself in the split decision making process, wondering, what would my mom think? Will I get in trouble for this? So it never really goes away, but I'd like to talk a little bit about my experiences, and perhaps you felt the same way. So feel free to like this video, leave me your comments, and if there's anything in depth more that I'm not covering that you would like for me to discuss based on my experiences, I am happy to do that. So let me start by telling you just a little bit about my mother and the family that she came up in. She was the 3rd born in a family of 8, and my aunt, who is the next one up older from her, is still a great mentor and a great friend of mine. We talk all the time. And she has told me many times stories of their childhood growing up, that not only was she expected to take care of my mother, but anytime my mother got upset, she had to be given into. She had to be given exactly what she wanted, because my grandmother did not want that embarrassment factor around her. So My mother learned at a very early age how to scream, throw a fit, and manipulate. And that she knew that she would get exactly what she wanted. She would always get her way. And the key phrase in the home was, don't make the baby upset. Because if you make her upset, she's going to cry and she's going to embarrass us. So that is how she started with this. And no matter how many people have told her through life, how many co-workers, friends, family members have kind of tried to sit her down and tell her, you can't treat people like this, she continues to do it, because in a true narcissistic mind, they are never at fault. Now, my mother was a track runner. She was actually quite good from what I've heard, but she never got the chance to fully expand on her talent based on where my family lived. So when I started taking off in gymnastics, she thought, oh wow, this is the perfect opportunity for me to live out my dreams through my daughter. She had started me in gymnastics classes when I was about 7 years old, and I had a little bit of talent, and it was fun for me. But as a little girl, of course, it's going to be fun. But it wasn't something that I was looking at as a lifelong career, or really even something that I wanted to do long term. It was just a cool after-school activity. But my mother could not accept that. She took it and ran full force with it. There was always competition. I always had to be the best. And I didn't want to be the best. I just wanted to be a kid and have friends and have fun. So even when we would get together with my family, my cousins, especially one in particular, it was like they had to constantly have us in competition with each other. Who got the better grade in math that year, or who was the best dressed, or who, you know, won the beauty pageant that year. That was another thing that my mother had done, was put me in beauty pageants there for a while. And I absolutely hated it. But again, she was wanting to live her glory through me. I was also a latchkey kid when I was younger, and that meant, for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, during the 80s when both parents worked and there was not a whole lot of daycare available back then, kids came home alone, and they were expected to do chores and sometimes even do laundry and get dinner started, because mom and dad both worked, came home late, and there were things that need done. So in addition to that, I have a special needs brother who is actually a couple of years older than me, but mentally he is only even now about the age of 8 years old. So I was expected not only to come home, cook, clean, get all the things taken care of at the house, but I was also expected to get my brother home from school and take care of him. So in addition to gymnastics practices and, you know, the other things that I had to do, there really wasn't a whole lot of time. So it didn't leave a whole lot of time or room to have a lot of friends or develop any kind of relationships throughout my childhood. So because of the gymnastics, and because I did have a good bit of talent, my mom decided that I should move to Houston and join Bella Caroli's gymnastics team. Bella Caroli was, for many, many years, the Olympic gymnastics coach. He made gymnastics what it is today. And he had a facility here in Houston where he trained future Olympians. And everybody knew that if you wanted a career in gymnastics, then that is the place you needed to be. So she arranged for me to come down to Houston for an audition. They accepted me, and that was that. For 2 years, I lived in Houston in a boarding house, which was basically a house that had a house mom where 6 or 7 girls that all trained at the facility, but their families lived out of state or even out of the country. We lived there together, and we would train in the morning, go to school, and then go back and train in the evenings. So for 2 years I did this, and this started when I was 9 years old. Finally, when I was about 11, maybe 12, my parents decided it was time to move. And so they sold their house and their businesses and moved to Houston so that they could be here close to me. Now, remember, I never actually wanted any of this. This was all my mother's doing. She wanted this dream more than I did. And so there was a lot of pressure on me to continue with the gymnastics and to do well, because I wanted to please my mother. I wanted her to love me, and that was the only way that I could do that. I was with Bella Caroli at his facility until I was about 18 years old. When I was 13, I was miserable. I was actually at one point contemplating taking my own life because I was so unhappy. I had no friends. I was constantly injured because for anyone who has ever been in gymnastics or knows anyone that's been in gymnastics, it's a brutal sport. And I had already suffered everything from broken foot, a broken leg, busted knees with surgery to correct, major back issues from injuries, constantly having rips and tears and things on your feet and on your especially the palms of your hands from swinging bars, several hours a day. So I just was flat out miserable. But because I was so fearful of my mother, and because of the guilt trips and the manipulation that she always used against me, I was so afraid to tell her that I wanted to quit. She never had not taken the opportunity to tell me, we gave up our lives. Your father and I, we gave up everything, our friends, our family, our business, and we moved here all for you because you wanted to be here and, you wanted to be a gymnast. All the while in my head thinking, I never wanted any of this. This was all your dream. But I couldn't tell her that, right? She's going to get upset and she's going to get mad and things will get very bad. So for 6 months, I remember standing in front of the mirror in my bedroom, rehearsing the conversation that I wanted to have with my mom on how I could tell her that I didn't want to do this anymore, that I understood how much she and my father had given up to be here for me, but I was miserable and I was not happy, and that I was contemplating suicide. So finally, December 23rd, just before I turned 14 years old, I went into the living room where she was watching TV, and I asked her if I could talk to her. And I said, I want this to be a woman-to-woman conversation, not a conversation where it's parent to child. And I really need you to listen to me and hear my concerns. So she said, okay. And I thought, great, I'm going to have my mom actually listen to how I feel for a change. So I told her everything just as I had rehearsed it. And when I was finished talking, she sat in silence for about 2 minutes. And finally, I said, Mom, please say something. Please tell me you understand. And she got up and she walked to the kitchen and she got her purse and her keys and she headed for the door. And I said, Mom, where are you going? She said, you want me to say something? Well, I'll just say that you've just ruined my entire life. and I have no reason to live anymore, so I'm going to go and I'm going to find the tallest bridge in Houston and I'm going to drive my car off of it because apparently nobody cares about me and nobody loves me. Now, this isn't the first time that my mom had used this tactic, but this time was different. I didn't think a whole lot of it at the time. I just thought, oh, here she goes again. She's going to go kill herself, but she'll be back in a few hours when she calms down, because that was generally how it went with her. 2 days went by and she didn't come back. And by this time, as a 13-year-old girl, thinking that my mom had actually gone through with it this time and actually killed herself, I was so afraid that my mom was never coming back and that I was the one that was going to be walking around responsible for that guilt my entire life. I decided that no matter what happened, no matter how miserable or unhappy I was, that as soon as she came back, if she came back, I would beg her forgiveness and I would stay in gymnastics. And that's exactly what happened. Fast forward to my senior year of high school. Colleges were starting to take applications, and I really didn't think that I was good enough to get a college scholarship. I was talented, but not quite that talented. My mother seemed to think otherwise, and she wanted me to go to OU, which is where she had gone to college. And that's really the only thing that she was focused on, was me going to OU. So we videotaped me at practices. She sent out videos to OU and college applications. I actually had sent some applications to a couple other places that I wanted to go without her knowing, just to see what would happen. Well, fate had a different plan in store for me. The very first competition of my senior year, I got to my second event, which was the floor exercise, and ended up doing something that injured my knee so badly that it ended my career. The doctors, after examining me back in Houston, basically said, this is it. You're never going to compete again, and this is a career-ending injury. And I was crying, my mom was crying, both for different reasons, and from the average onlooker, you might have actually found it touching until you realized that I was crying with relief and she was crying with sadness. So she still refused to accept the fact that my career in gymnastics was over. She tried to get me to, and this was after 6 months of rehabilitation, physical therapy. I graduated high school. I remember walking across the high school stage to get my diploma on crutches. But after 6 months, when the doctor finally cleared me to walk without crutches, she started trying to encourage me to go back to the gym. It's not too late. You can still make this up. I think you can. I said, Mom, didn't you hear what the doctor said? You know, if I re-injure my knee, that's it. I could be completely disabled for the rest of my life. But that didn't matter. She still wanted me to go back. So that was a big argument. So I did. I tried to go back, and I really don't remember how it happened. I just remember that I kind of phased myself out of it. I wasn't part of a team anymore. I wasn't really part of any group effort because I couldn't participate. So I would kind of go in just whenever I felt like going in, and I would do a few things here and there. And then I started noticing that the length of time and the days from when I had been in last got longer and fewer and farther between, until one day I realized I guess I had quit and nobody had really noticed. So without gymnastics, I started training in the gym, doing weightlifting. That was a good outlet for me because you have to realize I was training probably 6 to 8 hours a day. And that's a lot of time when that is taken from you and you don't have anything to do. So the weightlifting in the gym was a really good outlet. That was my mom's idea as well. And then she decided that, well, maybe I should go to college and get my degree in personal training or physical therapy or something like that. So she sent me off to OU because that's where she decided I needed to go. And since she was paying for it, she got to choose. And she also got to choose my career path.